Many of us have been programmed into believing that such a place called hell is where we go to after this lifetime, where we go to burn for all of eternity, given the fact that we've committed all these sins and what may have you. That's not the case. What if I told you earth is actually hell? We have two forms. We have a higher self and we have a lower self. The higher self represents our God-like state, our eternal soul, the immortal one. Lower self is the physical body, the flesh. This is where we experience our sexual passions and creativity. The lower self is connected to earth and the higher self is connected to the celestial. So you can think of the higher self and lower self as just two different spectrums. So the higher self is connected to the celestial beings, higher beings, and the lower self is representation of the terrestrial, earth, all things that represents the earthly realm, the ancestral lineage that we have. Now, why do I say earth is hell? Earth is hell because we have illnesses, you have sicknesses, you have famine, you have world hunger. People work in stressful environments just to survive. This is where a lot of people are surviving. But when we talk about hell, people talk about hell mostly in a negative context. Hell does not have to be this bad place. It is what we make it. Just like heaven. Heaven is also what we make it. If it's in a person's will to be tumultuous or whatever, would you say that's negative? Or is it just being? Like I said, the lower self, physical body, is all things of material possessions, all things that are related to earth. And the higher self is a representation of all things that are celestial. So knowledge, wisdom, compassion, unity. This is where we experience oneness, knowledge. The higher self, or our God-like state, is the eternal one, the immortal one. So our higher self goes with us in all aspects of our soul's journey. And every lifetime that we've had, God, or our higher self, has all of our past life experiences into the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is stored in the higher self, our eternal soul. Hell is not a negative place. Hell is what we make it. Heaven is what we make it. It is about the will. Our higher self and our God-like state also deals with our will, our true purpose. The higher self has placed itself into the lower form, trying to do the will, trying to fulfill the will here. That's why we're here. We're here to fulfill the will of our soul. I'm sure we've all said the Lord's Prayer. And within the Lord's Prayer, it says, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So if heaven is up there, where do you think earth is? Where do you think hell is? Hell is on earth. But it does not have to be negative. It doesn't have to be famine, world hunger, a world of destruction and chaos. Hell is what we make it. But we get so caught up into the negative construct we have placed upon earth that we can't see the positive. We can't see the heaven within earth. This is why many of us may experience or even witness such things happening and taking place, such as a world of destruction and dysfunction. It is from the will, our higher self, that we produce into the lower self, and it reflects the will of what we have for earth. So if everything comes from the mind, consciousness is our higher self. Consciousness is our state of awareness. It travels. What representation do people give hell? People associate it with death, pain, suffering, chaos, all these negative attributes that is given to it. Evil. This is where evil exists. Humans are evil, right? Humans commit the most evil crimes. Humans can be self-serving, self-soothing, selfish, people full of their ego. A lot of people are ego-driven, and this is where we go to being complacent and people full of cognitive dissonant behavior. Earth is hell, but like I said, it does not have to be negative. Earth can also be just like heaven. We have to bring down the will. We have to tap into our soul, enter into our soul to fulfill the will of our soul's purpose, our eternal soul's purpose for being on this journey. There's a lot of things that we have to debunk and really reorganize when it comes to heaven and hell. First off, like I always say, there's two different states of consciousness. So if you're tapping into the consciousness of hell, that's what you're going to experience. If you're tapping into the consciousness of heaven, that's what we're going to experience. But the idea of, based off of the idea of these things, that is what is going to produce into our reality. So if we think heaven is negative or heaven is full of destruction, but we're tapped into the state of consciousness of heaven, that is what we're going to be presented with. That's what is going to be presented to us. So we have to be really intentional and change our ways of thinking, about these two things. We change our state of consciousness. Just like the lower parts of ourselves can be destructive, they can also be beneficial and positive, giving us a positive impact on our lives. Just like heaven, or a state of consciousness of heaven, can be positive, it can also be full of destruction. It doesn't mean that destruction is a bad thing. With every new beginning, death has to happen. Something has to be sacrificed in order for new beginnings, new things to take place, new opportunities to come into play. Something has to be sacrificed. Sacrifice doesn't necessarily mean, a blood ritual yourself. That's not what that is. Every day people make sacrifices, whether it's for their kids, whether it's for a better job. But with every new transition has to come some type of, not necessarily destruction, but something has to give. And this is why it's so important for us to raise our vibrations. When we raise our vibrations and raise our consciousness, the state of Earth also raises its vibration and consciousness, because Earth also has a pulse. Earth also has a consciousness. When we raise our vibration and raise our state of consciousness and what we want to see and what attributes that we give Earth and the state of consciousness of Earth, that is what is being presented to us. So if we think about Earth as being this negative place, Earth, aka hell, being this negative place full of evil creatures and malevolent beings, that is what is going to be presented to us. Things that we give Earth, Earth gives us back. If we give it the consciousness of pain and suffering, that is what is going to give back to us. How we view Earth. How do we see Earth? How do we sense Earth? How do we sense hell? Hell is a state of consciousness that we tap into. And only our perception of Earth, the perception that we give Earth, such as being a painful, miserable, suffering place, that is what we're going to experience. So unless we change our consciousness and really challenge our cognitive dissonance, that is when we'll see change. We must do the internal work. How do we change the state of consciousness? Think about all the things that you would want to see in your existence. A lot of us like to get caught up into what other people tell us about their association with Earth. And then that is what intrudes into our reality and our existence on our life's journey while we're here. Change your state of consciousness on what hell is, and change your state of consciousness on what heaven is. Because these two states of consciousness is just what you make it. The consciousness is our level of awareness. However we envision heaven, that is what we're going to see. However we envision hell on Earth, that is what is going to be produced. That is what we're going to see. Let me break it down even further. Thy kingdom come. The kingdom is within. The kingdom is within your mind, your subconscious, how you perceive life, how you perceive the world. Humans are evil. We all have it in us to be evil. We all have it in us to be good. But it is the perception of these two things. It's the perception of these two states of consciousness that is just being reflected from how we feel on the inside. Everything is reflected. We are all reflections of one another. We reflect the life that we perceive and that we envision. Once we are done with the physical body and we go to whatever place that we envision, we only have our state of consciousness, and we only have our higher self, our soul, our eternal soul. That is what we take with us after we're done being here on earth. And whatever state of consciousness that you're in, that is what is going to be presented to you. In near-death experiences, many people talk about how blissful it is, how soothing and relaxing it is to be out of the body. The physical body is bound to earth, and it makes it less than easy to leave this body because we're still connected to it. If you say you're going to burn in hell, you're going to go in hell because of the sin that you've committed while here on hell or in hell or on earth, wouldn't you need a physical body to burn? You would have no physical body because of how attached you are towards the things that you've done while here, and you placing judgment on yourself. And that's another thing, we place judgment on ourselves. There's no one else judging us. We are more critical of our own being. We're critical of our own actions that we take. That's why we experience shame, guilt, fear. We place judgment on ourselves, and on the judgment that we take or make on ourselves and how bad we feel about ourselves, that is what is being reflected in our consciousness. Which means if you feel that badly about whatever it is that you have done while here, and when you go out of your body and you envision a place called hell or have a near-death experience of seeing fire and all that other stuff, it is because it is a reflection of how you feel. It is a reflection of how you perceive your life is going to be after. It has nothing to do with an outside supernatural force judging us after we're done here. The whole purpose of us being here is to bring down the will, our true purpose, our life's mission here on earth, and to fulfill our life's purpose through our lower self. That's why we have taken the form of the physical flesh, in order to do the work or the will of God that's within us. That is why we're here. So if heaven is up here, it's the higher state of consciousness, that means our lower form, our lower self is hell. It is in hell. Hell is what we make it, and it's also dependent on how we think of our heaven up here. How do we perceive of the consciousness of heaven, the state of consciousness of heaven? How do we perceive it? And that is what reflects through our lower self, and we push it out into our reality. We reflect it, and it presents us with how we perceive our heaven, how we perceive our hell. So let me know how y'all perceive hell. Do you think it's a physical place, or do you think it's just a state of consciousness, and depending on how you perceive it is what's going to be reflected back to you and presented back to you? But let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see y'all next time. Peace and abundance, peace and chaos.